Hi, and welcome to the first episode of the Yet to Be Titled podcast. My name is Brad. This is Eric,
What's up, everybody?
and today we're going to talk a little bit about the Star Trek Picard trailer, give our initial thoughts and feelings, and kind of what we think is going to happen. But before we get started, just wanted to kind of give you a brief introduction to each one of us, give you our Trek timelines, our favorite captain, and kind of go from there. So I'll go ahead and get started. I started watching Trek with my dad when I was super young in my elementary years. He introduced me to the original series, and my dad was the kind of guy that he'd watch the original series and could tell you in the first 5 seconds what was going to happen the whole episode. He had seen them so many times, and something about that inspired me. So I watched through all of the original series movies. Somehow or another, I missed out on most of the first season of Next Generation when it came out. But I remember really digging in, starting in about midway season 2 of Next Generation and catching it on a week by week basis. So I really call Next Generation my home in Trek. I've been through that maybe, I don't know, at least a dozen times. Try to take at least a lap through that about once a year, once every other year. And but my favorite Trek series so far has got to be Deep Space Nine. So I really enjoy the long story arcs, kind of those stories that have long burns. So knowing that the whole story, the whole time period of Deep Space Nine just had a bunch of story arcs that developed over time with overlapping arcs, and I liked the storytelling on that and how things built on one another. And I know Next Generation did that too, but it was something about the maybe the darker side a little bit of the Trek universe really attracted me. So along with that, I'd say that Ben Sisko is probably my favorite commander or captain um, in Trek. I don't know if I could really tell you why. I just liked his personality, especially as he's matured as a commander of Deep Space Nine, and as he took on the Defiant and headed things up through the Dominion Wars. I just really appreciated who he was. So that's how I got my start. I got tons more to say, but I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Eric to tell us a little bit about his Trek history.
So I started watching Trek in the early '90s as well, mostly syndicated reruns of the Next Generation because I at that time didn't have anybody to watch it with, so I didn't even really know when it started. But that's when I first started watching it, and then slowly through the '90s, I kept watching more and more and really liking it. And then Voyager in the later '90s came out, and I was old enough to know, hey, Star Trek Voyager's on. I'm going to watch this. So that was the first show that I started watching every week when it was on, and I loved it. And it had a continuous story. It was great. So that was my favorite Star Trek series for the longest time because I got to watch it live, which I loved. And that was before Netflix and you didn't have easy access to these Star Trek series like you do these days. You can go watch the entire Star Trek, the original series, or any of them you want now and get all caught up. But back then you didn't have that, so Voyager was amazing and I loved it. So that was my favorite series until Discovery just came out 2 seasons ago, and the first season it was good and I really liked it. And it would have never been my favorite series though. The second season really knocked it out of the park, introduced a lot of my favorite new characters, and also my favorite by far captain has to be Pike. He really knocked it out of the park with how he commanded and trusted his crew and just did a great job. Even though we only got to see him for one season, he's become my favorite captain by far. And I think another big factor is the fact that I got to watch this live as it came out. Is also me and Brad have become friends at that point, so I had someone to talk to and text to every episode, and that really adds a lot to the value of watching Star Trek. I think is talking to somebody about your theories and did you see this? Did you catch this? That is really something special, and I think that's a big part of the reason why I love Discovery as much as I do, and I can't wait to see more.
That's kind of a good reflection on why I like Trek as a whole is that not just because of the story it's telling, but because of the conversations that we have afterwards, and being able to share what Trek meant to us, what episodes meant most to us. Gosh, it'd be hard to narrow it down like a list of my favorite episodes, because it really depends on my mood, right? And I think that Trek has the unique character of a show to really speak to so many different people about different things. And even as Eric and I have talked about different episodes of Trek and what spoke to us, gosh, just the differences that different episodes made in our lives. And we've got other friends too that we'll bring onto the show from time to time that Trek meant something different for them at different times in their life. And we've got a friend who's basically an encyclopedia of Trek that can come on and give us all kinds of information. So why don't we go ahead and kind of give our feelings about this trailer that just came out, the Star Trek Picard, set to come out later on this year.
Yeah, let's go over what we know so far about the Picard series. So starting out, we have a list of some of the main cast, which is pretty cool. It's also been announced that it's going to start in 2399, which is approximately 15 years after the Next Generation show. And if you go by that, Picard would be 94, because he was born in 2305, I believe it is. So I'm not 100% sure. That seems really old to have Picard being 94 to me. What do you think about that, Brad?
I think Patrick Stewart is like a fine wine. He did well, and I think Picard probably does the same thing. If we think of medicine and in these years, it's probably not out of the norm to live that long. If we think of the episode Relics in Next Generation, Scotty was still functional at well over 100. And so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Picard is this age. I think that timeline fits. I think that for the way his look, the way he retired, they kind of alluded that he retired from Starfleet, kind of all fits. And I got some other thoughts too. I really love that he's back on the Vineyard again. So I think that's an okay thing. I think this jives.
Yeah, I can see that too. You're right about Scotty. I kind of forgot about that. Him being older at that point. Okay, so next up we have the main producer, which is Alex Kurtzman. He and J.J. Abrams obviously kickstarted, I guess, Trek back into the mainstream in 2009 with the Star Trek reboot. And he's worked on all the shows since then. I think it's a great move to have him in here. I'm only worried that he's getting too much work at this point, because I know he's done several shows and is still doing them right now for CBS. I forget what the name of the show is. I don't have it in my notes here, but he's doing another show right now, plus Discovery, and then now he's going to do Picard. And I'm sure he's going to be involved in the other Star Treks that are coming as well. So I'm afraid he's going to get overworked. But I mean, that'll have to be, if he's a good manager, he'll be able to handle that and have good people under him. But we don't know that. So he's had a huge history. I mean, he did Xena, which I didn't know about, and the Hercules TV show, which I think we all watched that as kids, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was a co-producer on that. He did Fringe, which I loved. Did you watch Fringe?
Yeah, I did. I watched it all the way through. Yeah, that was definitely some imaginative genius in that show.
Right. He did Alias, which was good too. Most of these he did, and a lot of them he worked with J.J. Abrams on, like they co-did them. So I'm pretty excited for that. Next up we have is
real quick, back on Alex Kurtzman. What? Tell me, like in a quick 60 seconds, what were your thoughts on the 2009 series as it went forward, the Kelvin universe, Kelvin timeline?
Oh, I mean, I thought it was great. I mean, we got Star Trek back. It was dead. I mean, and it was great. Now, it was a lot more action-based than people were used to and people were complaining. I love that stuff. So I loved the movie. I thought it was fantastic. I was a giddy schoolboy watching that.
Yeah, what about the second two movies? Did you feel like they continued the story well enough?
Yeah, I enjoyed all of them.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, there was different parts, that I could say, oh, I didn't like how they did this, or I didn't like how they did that. But, I mean, we had Star Trek back. And I know a lot of people were complaining because it was, too much action. But like I said, it's Star Trek and it's back. I'm not going to complain. What were your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I really appreciated the new re-envisioning of Star Trek, having a bit of a different start, getting to see James Kirk as a kid, and what he would have experienced, and man, that was interesting to see him as the sort of rebellious kid, because that kind of carries through to the way he captained his ship. But I love that. I loved the casting that they had. I think Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto, they did an amazing job at those particular roles. I don't know that I would have cast anybody else in those different positions, and even seeing and Simon Pegg as Scotty. Gosh, I love Simon Pegg. So to see him in Trek was sort of I don't want to call it a dream come true, but it definitely was a giddy moment for me seeing him come on like that. I really like Simon Pegg. So some of the different ways that they've been technology in that too, being able to do that long transport, that long distance transport, tying in Enterprise, talking about transporting Admiral Archer's dog. I could keep going on and on, but ultimately, I did love Visit to Trek. I didn't really like how I thought that Into Darkness and that second one. What was the second one called, Eric?
Oh man, Beyond, Star Trek Beyond, right?
Yeah, Star Trek Beyond. The one thing I would criticize a little bit is storylines. I think were a little too similar. They definitely had different elements to them, but ultimately it was the same sort of flow and cadence, which I didn't really dig. But the ship, seeing the insides of the ship in this new re-envisioned world was, I think, phenomenally done. The clean, crisp feeling of the ships, the way they felt more like a submarine than I think the original series or even Enterprise did. That just, I don't know, that blew my mind in the way that was. It felt more real to me. So I really like that revisit to it. I definitely am glad that they did see this as an alternate, not necessarily an alternate timeline, but as a parallel timeline that was caused by Prime. So with that, I think it holds true to the way that Star Trek does time travel, and so I'm grateful for that. So overall, I really loved it. So that's why I guess I'm excited about Alex Kurtzman's involvement with Discovery and with this new show. I think he's going to carry in a lot of those same things that I love about that and about Discovery into this Picard show. And I mean, well, I'll cut it off right there. But yeah, I think this was a good decision.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, so next up we have Allison Phil. So she's the second youngest crew member that's going to be on the Enterprise. She's 33, but she looks super young. She looks like she's early 20s. She's been in several shows, including Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and The Newsroom. I'm not sure what her role is going to be, but she kind of strikes me as a granddaughter of Picard, maybe. But that's kind of stretching it. So she's probably a crew member of some sort. But I don't know where they're going to go with the show yet, so it's hard to guess. Do you have any thoughts on her? What role you think she might play?
I don't really yet. So I guess this probably also goes into the approach these like teasers and stuff like that. Just so that way our listeners can kind of get an idea for who we are. Like I generally don't watch trailers and I don't watch teasers because I want to be completely surprised when I walk into a show like this. So all the homework you guys are hearing right now is all thanks to Eric digging in and doing some of this because I'd like to show up new. But looking at who Allison Phil is, I could see her as being kind of an early cadet, somebody who has studied the works of Picard in the Starfleet Academy. Maybe she's kind of like maybe like a Wesley Crusher on this new ship or this new story, and she kind of idolizes Picard. I could see where she could be a family member of. I don't know that I see her as like a granddaughter or like a relation like that, though. Just knowing, kind of from Picard's family lineage that he really was the last kind of the end of that branch of the Picards, since his nephew Rene was killed in the house fire. I think that was during at the beginning of Generations is when that happened. So yeah, I don't know about that, but I guess anything is possible in Trek. So maybe this is some distant relative that we didn't know about.
Yeah, it's hard telling. But I'll be honest, I don't think she's gonna be the who did you call her as? Shoot.
Wesley Crusher?
Yeah, I don't think she's going to be the Wesley Crusher because there's actually the youngest person on the crew that they have announced looks young, like she could be the fresh out of school cadet maybe.
Oh yeah, okay.
But it's hard telling. Okay, let's move on. Next up, we have Michelle Hurd. So she was in CSI. Oh no, I'm sorry. She was a detective in Law and Order. I always get those shows confused. She's an older. She's 52. I think she's going to be one of the main bridge crew people with Picard. One of the other officers. I mean, she screams. She looks like Uhura. So I mean, I don't think they're going to put her in the that role exactly, but I think she's going to definitely fill one of the main officer roles. What do you think about her? Any ideas?
Yeah, I don't know that I have any feelings on her. I mean, I remember her from CSI. I don't know that I really know what role she's going to play. I'm hoping for just a strong, confident female, like command type role, maybe on the bridge. So maybe we're looking at a first officer or a a commander, something like that, lieutenant commander, maybe.
Yep.
So next up we have Santiago Cabrera. As I mentioned earlier, Eric had done a lot of the homework on this, trying to see who all was on the cast already. So, kind of reading through his notes, Cabrera was on Heroes. He was also on the show. What else do you have in here?
Big Little Lies. We played
Big
that
Little
movie.
Lies, Transformers. He played Lancelot. He's been in some other ones. He's definitely a recognizable actor. So, I see you have in your notes you're hoping for another bridge crew. I'm kind of thinking the same thing. If not bridge crew, then at least somebody who's in the command track. Maybe we're looking at like an engineer or something, or maybe somebody advanced in Starfleet. Somebody maybe from Starfleet Command or something that just has a role to play. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on him.
Yeah, I loved him in Heroes. I think, and we also have to remember somebody's got to be the cyborg or going to have the implants. One of these people, right? Because that's like a main need now.
Oh yeah.
So he may be him. I don't know. I don't know any of these actors. From what I've seen that they did, none of them really did a lot of makeup and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it could be anybody. Because one of them's got to be an alien, right? Too.
Probably. You're right. We're going to have some kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have that different the different crew. You can't just have all humans. That's not gonna work.
Sure.
That's not Star Trek. You know what? After looking at him, he would make a good Vulcan.
Oh, that looks true. Yeah,
but
I can see that.
We'll see. All right, next up we have Harry Treadaway. So this guy screams engineer to me. I might be wrong, but that's what he is. So he played in Penny Dreadful, and he also played in The Crown. I've never watched either one of those all the way through, but I've watched a couple episodes here and there. He seemed to do fine in both of them that I've seen him in. And he's a younger actor. He's 34, so he is he can play a variety of roles. I think.
Sure.
It'll be interesting. But like I said, I think he's got to be our engineer. I don't know why, but that's what I'm going to go with for him.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
All right, next up we have Issa Baynes. She's best known for playing in the stage play Hamilton and also some other stage plays, but she did also play the daughter of Matt Dillon in the movie Takers, which I don't think I've ever seen that movie, but that was her only other film cred that I've seen. I feel like this is a classic Patrick Stewart pick because he came from the theater scene, wasn't really well known until Star Trek. I feel like he had a role in getting this girl on the show. Maybe. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a fair fair assessment. I mean, a little bit of homework that I've done to try to figure out how to pronounce her name. She seems to be an up and coming star on the play circuit, and yeah, I don't know. I think she has kind of the presence of mind of maybe like a Deanna Troi did. So not to say that they have to parallel everything from Next Generation, but she definitely has that cool, calm, collected sort of demeanor that maybe she would add to the cast. So I'm not really sure what they have in for her on this.
I never thought about a Betazoid. Have we seen a Betazoid since Next Generation?
I mean, yeah, we had Lox on Deep Space Nine, and then golly, somebody on Voyager's crew, I think, was at least half Beta.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about her. I can't think of her name, but yeah. Yeah, okay. But you're right. After saying that, I can see that interface too. You know what would be cool?
What's that?
We're looking at the daughter of Deanna Troi.
Oh man, I don't know. Like if you start playing down that path, then the way we see it, this would also be Will Riker's daughter too, because
right?
they cemented their relationship. I don't know. I mean, I could see they do that, but that would be in a big time fan service sort of way, and a way to bring in those characters into this show. But yeah, I'm not so. I don't know. That would be that's an ace in the hole, I suppose.
She is 20. She is the youngest actor on the show, of the main cast at least. So that's cool. All right. So next we're going to move on to some rumored cast. So I don't know if you've seen this rumors last week, Brad, but it was.
I saw some of them. Go ahead though.
Did you see that Brent Spiner was rumored to be on the show?
Yeah, I've talked about this with some other friends too. Having Brent Spiner on the show, I think that is going to bring back Data in a way that I think we were all hoping for after Nemesis. Watching him sort of sacrifice his life at the end of Nemesis, spoiler alert for those that haven't seen it, but I guess if you're listening to the show, you've likely seen Nemesis. Was kind of one of those heartstrings that they tugged at the end of that, but then seeing the possibility that his memories and his were being rebuilt into that lesser developed Nooning Soon android meant that there was a possibility he was going to come back. So I definitely think that would be the right answer. I'm looking forward to that. Watching other things Brent Spiner's been in, from Enterprise to even some of the, I think he did a role, maybe was it on Stargate? I don't remember. He did another kind of sci-fi type show. I know that he's a confident actor. He's going to bring a presence of mind that I think would be great with Data, with a full-blown emotion chip and maybe some other things going on. I think that would be a great choice. So, yeah, I'd be excited for that.
Definitely. And there was also, I don't know if you caught this, and I didn't know it until I did my research. So he was going to be on season 4 of Supergirl with a reoccurring role, and that was late last year. But he had to cancel for a scheduling conflict. So I'm thinking this is true and it's going to happen. And I'm thinking he canceled because they're like, "We want you on Picard. Clear your schedule." And he was like,
Yeah.
"No problem. I will clear my schedule."
Yeah, you can definitely tell that Brent Spiner has a thing for Trek. It's really his lifeblood.
Definitely. The only other thing I'm worried about, back in All Good Things, the final episode where it shows them 25 years in the future, which we know can't really be true if you go off the Nemesis timeline, right? Because he, like you said, he died. So, but you see him in there. Remember, he grazed his hair to make himself look older and everything.
Sure.
Yeah. So I mean, it depends on what timeline we're on, but they can definitely do it, even if they keep Data alive without going back to the other android. So they could do it a lot of ways. And being an android, you'd kind of worry about him aging. It'd be harder for him to make him look older. But since they kind of preference that a little bit in All Good Things, that he was trying to do that, I think it would be fine. I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and I think that later on during our review or kind of deconstruction of the trailer, we can kind of talk about All Good Things. I think that we'd be remiss if we didn't have a conversation about that.
Very true. All right, and the last rumor, which isn't really a rumor because Jonathan Frakes actually tweeted out a picture of him and Patrick Stewart together, and he said, "Back on the floor with this guy." I mean, so you know he's definitely getting involved, and he also tagged CBS, Star Trek CBS. So, you know, he's going to either be directing or in front of the camera, probably both, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that. I mean, who doesn't want Riker back, right?
Yeah, for sure. Now, here's the real Will Riker, or are we going to see Tom Riker?
Oh, it's got to be Will, right? They wouldn't pull Tom back. Well, I don't even remember where did Tom go at the end of that episode.
He ended up with the Maquis and DS9.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think he got away. I'd have to go back and watch that episode again. But man, how funny would it be if they did something like that and really messed with our heads?
That would be great. I love stuff like that. All right, are we ready to watch the trailer finally?
Yeah, let's do the trailer.
All right. All right, so I had to edit the video actually out because it was a copyright and it wouldn't let me do it. So watch the video now if you haven't seen it yet, which I'm sure most of you have seen it a gazillion times like we have, but watch it now. And when we cut back in, it'll be us talking about what we just seen. So obviously the trailer starts out with them in the vineyard, you know, where we've seen him a couple different times, and in the end of All Good Things, he's there.
So this is not a surprise to me to have him come back to the vineyard. I think that a lot of his best memories are there. I think that the fact that he doesn't have children, and he went back to no, his brother's name was Robert. That's anyway. He went to continue working a family farm after Robert and his son Rene were killed in that fire at the vineyard. I think it makes total sense that Jean-Luc has returned back to the family homestead to tend to this, especially if there was something that disillusioned him in there from the Federation. I don't know. I think it's poetic. I love it. I'm excited for that. Matter of fact, I would be, and this is probably going to be a controversial thing to say, but I would be ecstatic if all we saw was Picard. If the story really took place with Picard from the vineyard, revisiting other people or being pulled into Starfleet Command
like retelling the stories. That makes sense. I can see where that would be kind of cool, Brad. But I don't know. There's been a lot of talk about the event being the destruction of Romulus, but when we did the timeline, it just didn't quite add up right. That's what happened, and so whatever happened that made him leave and lose faith was 5 years after Nemesis. So we really don't have any clue. And we already talked about this. We can't really go from the All Good Things timeline where he warped forward in time and stuff. Like, that stuff's not accurate. So I don't think it has anything to do with that. And then we were talking earlier about the 2009 Star Trek reboot and how, that's the Calvin timeline. And it's completely different. So I don't know if we're going to hit that, if that's going to even be a factor. As much. Now, I did forget to tell you this. I don't know if you caught this, but Kurtzman put a tweet out that the destruction of Romulus was going to be factored into the show, so it is part of the show in some sort.
Well, that's kind of a vague.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Because there's a lot of diplomacy that would have happened after Nemesis that would have. The Romulan Empire has taken a critical blow. The fact that the Remans at the end of Nemesis had sort of undermined the entire, Romulan, government, basically, that there would have been an opening for the Federation to come in and really resolve a conflict that had been going on since the original series. So I think that, something that could have gone on there, while it would have been a part, or it's going to be a part of the show, I don't know that this rescue mission would have been it.
Yeah,
And we can
I
also
agree.
discount that it's definitely not the Borg either, because we know that Voyager returned to the Alpha Quadrant in 2394. What year did you say this would have taken place?
So the event that made him leave
2380, 2384 would have been when Picard left the
left Starfleet,
Federation.
right? Right. So
Hmm.
it's hard telling what happened. I'm really excited to see and to figure out what's going on here. I mean, it definitely from the trailer it makes it sound like something really bad happened. Obviously, like maybe he
Yeah.
was leading this rescue armada and they lost like half their fleet to something that was his fault. That made him rethink everything. And
Yeah, I'm checking the timeline here because let's see what year. So I'm thinking forward a little bit. The Janeway that showed up in Voyager Endgame, the beginning of the episode. I'm kind of skimming through some notes here. 2404 was the original timeline that Voyager got back on her own by her own accord. But then Janeway went back in time to escort Voyager back through, and I don't know what year that it actually made it back. Um,
the year that
so it's
Voyager made
looking
it
like
back.
that's 23. Yeah, so that looks like that would have been 2378, maybe. So that doesn't play into this at all. And we can kind of cross out the Borg from this whole equation. Like by that point in time, Janeway's already destroyed the Unimatrix Zero and the Borg Queen. So the Borg are kind of on their own and they're dismantling. I mean, they don't really have the hive any longer. So I don't really know that that's who this would have been. I'm wondering if maybe something flared back up with the Dominion. I'm not as current with the books. We know that the wormhole alien stopped allowing the Dominion to come through. It consumed them, well before this point. So I don't know that we're looking at anything from the Delta Quadrant either, or I'm sorry, from the Gamma Quadrant. So I don't really know. Yeah, I'm not really sure what he led a rescue mission for.
Yeah, and I don't think we know yet. I think they're gonna make this up. I don't think there's really anything in the timeline that's gonna because we would have found it. I mean, or other people would have found it. People way smarter than us.
Yeah. So what kind of things do you think would have disillusioned a character like Picard so much that he would have left Starfleet for?
Definitely losing a bunch of people and it being his fault. I,
Yeah.
I think that's the key factor. Like he made a critical error.
Yeah. What do you think about like the Starfleet lost its way and was leaning more towards the Section 31 type things that we know that Picard really wasn't a fan of?
Well, that's definitely something I thought. Possibly, because what is this Picard show going to be? So they're bringing him. They want him to come back to Starfleet, right? Obviously, that's what he's there for. On the face to face. At least that's what it looks like is happening to me. He's sitting
Yeah.
down. So like what is his show? I don't think he's going to be on a big ship, right? I think he's going to be on a ship like the Defiant, like with a small crew. He's going to maybe be like covert ops, like with Section 31, which we've
Mm.
seen. We've seen a lot of Section 31 stuff here in Discovery. Now they are making a complete show dedicated to Section 31, which I think is going to be awesome, by the way. So I kind of don't really think for sure that's going to be it, but maybe he was involved with something and it went wrong, right?
Yeah.
And that could be a factor too.
Sure.
The main thing I see for this show though is it's going to be about Picard being like a diplomat. So I don't know if you played the CCG game back in the early '90s, but I sure did, and I was lucky enough to have a Picard, a Jean-Luc Picard, and I love that card by the way. And the only stat on that card that is 2 times is diplomacy.
Yeah, and that's I guess that's real reminiscent of this in the '90s as well, just being diplomatic on lots of things and really preserving um, the prime directive and leaning more towards diplomacy or talking through issues before using phasers. So yeah, I think that's probably um, going to factor into this. I don't know. Like I like the idea of him ending up on a smaller class ship that is not necessarily a flagship like the Enterprise has been in the past. I don't think that he's going to end up back on the Enterprise. It's just my gut feel that we're not going to, we don't. I don't know. My gut feel is that they're not going to bring a dynamic like the Enterprise or something with such big character like the Enterprise back onto the show. I think, or what I'm hoping for is something like a small ship like you were talking about with the Defiant. But um, and maybe he's not even in Starfleet at that point. Maybe he's just an advisor or an ambassador of some sort. And we're seeing a story where Picard has to revisit whatever happened that pulled him away, but he just happens to be the most knowledgeable. I could see that being the case. That would actually be compelling.
Yeah, I agree. I was kind of joking about the diplomacy thing. I just thought it was kind of a cool fact. I love that card game. And still have all my cards, but a show about diplomacy, I don't really think would be what we want out of Star Trek. I mean, I hope they prove me wrong, maybe, because that'd be something different. It'd be cool, and it's Patrick Stewart, so he could do it probably. But I don't really think it's going to be solely about diplomacy.
Yeah, and I think that kind of on the point there, not to dwell on it too much, but Discovery made me go back and revisit the original series and adult. And man, like, have you rewatched the original series lately?
Me and my daughters. So we have some Star Trek books we got, and they are based off the original series. So there's a couple scenes in the books that are on the show. Well, actually, most of them are, but the one where Sulu, he gets infected by that disease that makes you real. What is it? Charismatic, I guess, or you lose your ability to what is it called?
Your inhibitions, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. I couldn't think of it.
Yeah.
And he captured, or he doesn't capture, but he grabs Uhura and is like, you're with me, and he's in that scene is in the book. And so I showed, and so me and the girls, we watched that episode the next day, and I was like, yeah, here it is. This is what happens. So I haven't watched the whole series, but I do watch episodes here and there.
Yeah, well, Discovery made me, go back and rewatch them all, and while a lot of the story doesn't hold up to the Star Trek that I grew up with, man, it definitely gave me something to be nostalgic about and to see kind of some of that. But anyway, getting back to Picard, I think that I think maybe we might be looking at something kind of over and above maybe Starfleet. I don't know. I'm kind of trying to figure out what the surprises they could throw at us and what this could look like. I guess the other question that's been on my mind is what's his relationship to Beverly Crusher at this point? Did they end up fueling that romance, or did that fizzle? We definitely saw in the end of Next Generation and All Good Things that there at least would have been a relationship with them that ended in divorce if the timeline that was All Good Things would have come to be. What do you think, Eric?
I think it's definitely possible, but there hasn't been any rumors of her coming back on the show, though. And you think they would show that, but maybe not. They may just do a callback to it where they just say, what happened to you and Beverly, because they got divorced and All Good Things. They were divorced. But she kept his name, so they were on good terms, it seemed.
Yeah. I'm wondering. It's not likely, but if they would have had a relationship that still, again ended in divorce, maybe it was a doomed relationship altogether. I guess there could have been a chance for children. I mean, she would have been, by our timeline here in 2019, it would be really difficult for somebody of her age to have had kids. But we're talking about, we're talking about Star Trek here, so of course anything's possible. But so maybe there was a Picard and Beverly Crusher child that could be in the show at some point. I'm not real sure. I think that's a stretch though, but I think it's evident in the trailer that he is definitely on his own. So
it would be terrible if it was the end of the Picard family tree, but I don't really see how else they could play it. I mean, it's possible him and Beverly had a kid, like you said, but I don't really think they'll go there. But I guess we'll see when the show actually, comes on.
So there we have it. There's our thoughts. We're just a couple of Star Trek guys that want to hash through this. Definitely leave a comment if you think that anything that we said has any merit whatsoever. Or if you disagree or agree with us, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. We're just kind of trying this thing out. So this podcast was the podcast yet to be named. So if you've got any ideas, leave them in the comments below. Feel free to subscribe to Eric's channel, and let's see how this develops. So thanks again for watching. I'm Brad. This is Eric, and we'll see you next time.